I want you to seriously consider making an outline. They can be as simple as a single sentence briefly describing every major plot point, or as detailed as chapter by chapter, scene by scene, beat by beat, which is what I prefer. Hello fellow fic writers, kudos for clicking on this video. My name is Cora, and if you're here after watching part 1 of the How to Write Long Fanfiction duology, welcome back. If you're new here and feeling lost, not to worry, I've left a link to part 1 in the description. It covers all the storycraft advice related to writing longfics and epics, choosing a premise, throughline, POV, and gauging the character development potential of your chosen protagonist. This video will be all about the process of writing longfic itself. I'm going to tell you my strategies for planning, writing, editing, and staying focused. Longfics and epics are a lot of work, but they are well worth it. Chapter 5: Outlining. If you want to write a longfic, especially an epic, then I want you to seriously consider making an outline. This is when you figure out your plot ahead of time. They can be as simple as a single sentence briefly describing every major plot point, or as detailed as chapter by chapter, scene by scene, beat by beat, which is what I prefer. The longer and more complex your fic, the more detailed your outline should be. If you want to write a story that feels cohesive and well-paced, you need to track every subplot, world-building detail, and recurring character. I am a strong believer that editing should begin in the outlining phase. When you plan your story, especially in as much detail as I do, then you can already begin to find ways in which your plot is weak or likely to fall apart. Then you can fix those issues in your outline before you find yourself needing to delete 10k words from your manuscript. But what if you're a discovery writer who loses all creative spark when you outline? All I can really say is write the whole fic before you post it and be prepared to do some heavy edits. Other than that, I got nothing. I wouldn't ever consider writing a long fic without an outline, and especially not an epic length, because that's when I'd be most likely to fall into the traps I already covered in part 1. An ill-suited premise, lacking through line, and too many POVs. Outlining lets me avoid all that. It frees me up from the big picture so that during the drafting process I can focus on the details. If you're someone who discovery writes longfics and has any tips on how to avoid the common pitfalls I avoid with an outline, please comment below. Chapter 6: Staying motivated to finish your draft. Now we get to the second part of Anon's question. You know, the Anon that was mentioned in part 1? How do you stay motivated while writing such a long fic? To me, this comes in 3 parts: convenience, community, and fixation. Though I don't know how useful that last one would be for the neurotypicals. Page 1, convenience. This is when you make working on your long fic as convenient as possible. For me, it means keeping my outline and manuscript doc open on my laptop at all times, so it's always visible or a click away. For you, it might mean typing your fic into an app that allows for an easy switch between phone and computer. The goal is to put as few barriers between you and your long fic as possible. Page 2, community. We humans are social creatures. Yes, even the introverts. That's why if you want to stay motivated to finish your longfic or epic, you need community. I found this in 2 ways. First, there's the Discord server for my fandom niche. As I write my longfic, I give progress updates or talk about some non-spoilery aspects I'm excited about. Then the members of that Discord server get excited about my fic, which motivates me to keep writing it so that they can read more of it. The second way community motivates me to finish my longfic is challenges like National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo for short. During the month of November, people all over the world will attempt to write 50,000 words of their manuscript in a month. They gather on forums, attend writing sprints, and cheer each other on. There's nothing quite as motivating as a community all striving to achieve the same goal. Page 3. Fixation. This is when I make sure my longfic is on my mind as much as possible. I'll listen to my longfics playlist, I'll reread what I wrote, I'll mock up a book cover and make it my phone background. I'll decorate my outlines with pictures or make pic crews of my characters. Hey, just editing Cora here real quick. I just want to make sure people are aware that lately Pic Crew has been having ads everywhere for lewd games. No judgment if you're into that, just I know some people may want to avoid it, and I'm sure there are some minors watching my channel as well, so I'd rather not recommend this website without warning people, hey, there may be some really suggestive content on here. The goal is to feed my obsession with my story, so it lasts as long as it needs to until the project is done. I do have the underlying fear that one day I'll completely lose interest in my epic, and then I'll never finish it. How do I respond to that fear? I try to write as much of the story as possible before that happens. I don't know how useful that tip is to neurotypicals though, so if you are one, 90% of how to stay motivated advice is catered towards you anyway, so you're not losing much here. Chapter 7. Editing. How much editing you need to do will depend on how much outlining you did prior to drafting. If you did no planning, chances are you'll have a messy first draft that needs some heavy structural editing and rewrites. If you're like me and did extensive outlining that you followed for the most part, then you'll likely just need to do some copy edits and then a final proofread. I'm more of an overwriter than an underwriter, so my editing involves deleting paragraphs that add little to the narrative, cutting unnecessary adjectives and adverbs, or finding shorter ways to say the same thing. If you're an underwriter, you may need to flesh out your description, internal monologue, and exposition. The main tip I have when it comes to writing longfics and epics is to not underestimate how long the editing process can take. Even with minimal structural editing, it takes at least 3 hours per chapter to copy edit and proofread, and that's not even taking into account my podfic. Don't assume that just because you have 30 drafted chapters, it means you have 30 installments close to being ready. I also advise against editing and posting each chapter as you finish writing it. It's better to have a backlog of 10 chapters or more. This is because writing later chapters often means tweaks need to be made to earlier chapters for better cohesion or foreshadowing, so it's good to have that wiggle room. Epilogue, some bonus tips. There's just a few more nuggets of wisdom to impart before we end this video, so let's run through them quickly. Page 1. Recaps. Since you're posting in serialized format, the longer your story is, the more often you may need to briefly recap details from earlier chapters as they become relevant again. If you introduce a character and the character returns 3 chapters later, you don't need to worry about filling the audience in. 30 chapters later, a quick reminder would be great. Page 2. Simplify. A common issue I see in epics is that they'll add characters, world building, or side plots that the story could have done without. Do you really need to mention alternate dimensions that won't be explored, or a prophecy that won't come to pass during the events of the story? Best save those for another fic. Page 3. Tweak the outline as you go. If you stray from your outline, edit your outline. This makes you free to change things as you draft, while also keeping a note of what the lasting consequences will be. Halfway through drafting book 1 of my epic, I came up with an even better climax, which meant I had to change most of the resolution arc, as well as note how it would change the plot of book 2. If more changes come along, that's okay with me. An outline is more so a guide, or even a first draft rather than a strict path that must be followed. I hope all these tips in both parts 1 and 2 have made the process of writing longfics and epics much clearer now. If you have any wisdom to offer, any questions to ask, comment below or shoot me an ask on Tumblr. Link is in the description. And that's the end of the video. Kudos for watching, kudos for liking, and extra kudos if you've subscribed and hit the bell for more dreamy fanfiction tips. I will see you in my next video, but in the meantime, happy fic writing!